Hi lovelies, Lauren here. Welcome to day 3 of the 3 movement series. And today, as I mentioned yesterday, we're looking at this tension. This I find is probably one of the hardest tasks to explain. So I'm going to do my best. But the way it was described to me is if you imagine your muscles wrapping around your bone, okay? Bit grotesque, I know. Let's just go with it. How on earth does that translate to movement? Well, so we're gonna start with a float in a moment. But just so you can maybe see, so if you imagine we're kind of floating, very easy, very soft, almost like we're going against gravity, we're kind of floating through space. But with that float, so I'm going to kind of concentrate on this arm here. With that float, if we then invite in this thickness, and I imagine my muscles wrapping around my bones within my forearm, everything gets a little bit, it's almost like the movement becomes quite jolty. And I don't know if you can see this from far away. I might go up close to the camera, let's see. Okay, so if I focus on my arm here, again, floating, very soft, and I invite in this thickness, you can see there's this sudden change, and I'm sending a lot of energy down this one arm, and you can see my fingers are kind of shaky, going in different directions. Lovely, well done. And it's quite hard to sustain for long periods of time. So this is probably going to be a shorter video. So let's give it a go. Let's just ground into the space. But just to say where this might be applied, so we've probably seen kind of popping videos. I mean, I'm not very good at it. I'm trying to kind of briefly describe what that might look like. But I found this tension, inviting in this kind of thickness, as a way to kind of find new ways to isolate through my body. I don't know why I started isolating through my words. So yeah, that's how it might manifest. And this was a real challenging one for me because I always thought dance had to be floaty and almost soft in a way. And yes, I'm used to kind of quick change movement here and there, but then this was like so many quick changes amongst softness, if that makes sense. So let's give it a go. Planting the feet down into the earth, a little bit of softness through the knees, shoulders drop down and away from the ears. Let's maybe close off the eyes just for a few moments. Okay. Settle into the body, into the breath. We can take a couple of sighs here, so if there's anything you need to let go of, just let it go. Send it out into space, and as we breathe in, we welcome in this newness, this potential, this opportunity. Beautiful. One more breath, just like that. Okay. Let's start to find the float. Again, as always, this is our starting point, finding that really soft quality. Again, going against gravity. Imagine if we weren't attached down to the ground, we'd be floating through space as soft as almost like a balloon, just traveling through the air. But we still are grounded here. So even as we float, we are still very much in control. So if we were to come back to that image of a balloon, because it's not rooted down, it has very little control. The wind, suddenly a gust of wind can suddenly blow it off course. But we still have this connection to the ground through at least one point of the body. So mostly throughout this practice, it's been the feet connecting us down to the ground, keeping us grounded. But everything else floats. So imagine we've got this really soft quality, and I think coming back to what I said in our first session, imagining everything within the body also floating away. So the heart floating away from the lungs, each rib floating away independently. So not only have we got this external kind of floating appearance, it's also happening within. And this within sensation is often forgotten about. We tend to think about, again, how this looks in my body. But if we really connect to this floating imagery within, the difference that can make to our movements can be quite potent. I wonder if I can give an example. So if I think purely external, it's mostly with the arms. I might bring the head in. And now I'm going to start to translate that to within. So my shoulder blades are floating off the back. The ribs are floating around within this kind of a cavity within my belly, within my chest. My hip bones floating away, the femur floating, quadriceps or the hamstrings floating independently. Beautiful. So it might not look like an obvious change, those two different approaches, but it feels so different. Okay, so maybe just having a little play with that. Okay, right. Finding that flow. So that just emphasizes that there's always something new to explore. There's always something new to realize, even as we move. Okay. Now let's start to invite in this thickness. So inviting in all this tension, perhaps down an arm. The arms are a little bit more accessible here. So sending it all the way down the arm, but rather than just kind of locking out through the elbow, we can still move. We can still kind of almost as if we want to float, but there's so much tension, so much thickness, muscles wrapping around the bone. Lovely, well done. Okay. And as the arm fatigues, let's shift it to another place in the body. So I'm going to have a little play with inviting this tension into my chest. So straight away, I'm concentrating all my energy here to my chest. But even still, the rest of my body starts to become a little bit more rigid. Lovely, well done. Can I keep my arm floating, but keep that tension in the chest? Maybe. Again, as those muscles fatigue, shift it elsewhere. Let's play with a leg, maybe. Beautiful. So the movement suddenly comes so sticky. Beautiful. Okay. Play with the pace of our movements, maybe. Sometimes it might be easier to find that tension quicker. So maybe if we move a little bit more quickly around the space. So again, floating, floating, floating. And then find that thickness, but we still want to move at that pace. Beautiful. It's like the body is kind of fighting against itself here. Beautiful, well done. And with that tension, it's so much easier to change direction in an instant. Beautiful. Okay. And again, the muscles will fatigue quite quickly because we're sending all of our energy there. So when you need to, dial down that intensity, turn down the volume, find that float. So I think what we'll do is we'll just go a couple of times between floating, tension, quick changes, back to the float. Okay, so short little bursts. See what we find. Okay, so keep on floating, take a breath in, take a breath out. Invite that tension, but we still want to move at a fairly quick pace here. Find all those different places, ways to isolate through the body. So we've got tension through the shoulder, elbow, wrist, fingertips, thumb, hips. How can my hips be super tense? Lovely. Take a breath in, take a breath out, and float. Beautiful. Okay, letting go of that tension. Okay, I think we'll go just one more time because I don't want our muscles to, I don't want to overexert this. Okay, take a breath. Take an exhale. Invite that thickness in. Beautiful. Can we tense through the spine? Almost like we can no longer move bone by bone, but the body is still fighting for that movement. Beautiful. Keep inviting that tension in. Lovely. Okay. Take a breath. Take an exhale. And float. Beautiful. Okay. Continue floating for a few moments. I know it's really tempting to kind of just come to a stop, but let's slowly work our way down. Okay. Floating within the body, the limbs floating, our organs floating, perhaps imagining the eyes floating within their sockets. Beautiful. Okay. One more breath in. One more breath out. Slowly come to stillness. Beautiful. Okay. So that one's a little bit trickier. At least I find. You may have found it quite easy, especially if you are used to popping and locking and finding that isolation within the body. But what I find helps is just constantly coming back to that image of muscle wrapping around the bone. So it's like the bones want to move. The bones want to be fluid, even though they are that kind of hard structure. So the bones want to move, but it's like the muscles are stopping them. The muscles are stopping that movement from happening. So that's what I constantly like to come back to. And it's just, ways we can use it in terms of choreography, going from, again, that kind of soft, steady float to, again, finding that tension and suddenly fighting against yourself and then floating once more. Lovely. Okay, so that is day 3. Come back tomorrow for day 4, where we'll be exploring something different, and you'll have to come back tomorrow to find out. All right, see you then. Mwah.